Hi, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a coin quilt for a baby. Now, throughout the video, I'll give you some instructions and ideas on how to make the larger quilt. So you're going to be making adjustments on this if you choose to make the larger quilt, but I'm mainly focusing on the baby size. So let's take a look at this coin quilt. Isn't this pretty? I think these colors work really well together. That's why jelly rolls are so desirable, is because all the colors are coordinated for you. Now in this particular jelly roll quilt, my columns are 5.5 inches wide, and then the sashing, which is in between all the rows, is 3.5 inches wide. So I've made 4 columns of coins, and then there are 5 sashing strips along this way, and then of course there's one at the bottom as well at the top. Now remember, if you're making a larger coin quilt, you can cut the width of your coins out much wider. You can also make your sashing wider. So it's really an easy quilt to design and put together for all the different sizes. So I'm going to now go over what you need for this particular baby size. Now, the size of the baby quilt is 35 inches wide by 45 inches long. For this particular baby size, I'm using 1 jelly roll, and it's going to be more than enough. And this jelly roll had 20 strips in it. You can also get them in packs of 40 strips in a roll if you're going to make the larger quilt. For the sashing for the baby size, you need 3/4 of a yard of sashing. Now, if you're interested in making larger quilts, these are the average sizes for the other size beds. So a twin on average is 80 inches by 110, full 96 by 110, queen 102 by 118, and of course the king 130 by 118. So if you're going to make the larger coin quilt, you would probably make your coin rows wider than that 5.5. I would recommend at least 8.5 or 9.5 inches wide. Okay, so now that we've gone over the instructions, I want you to take your fabric for your sashing. Now when you purchase your fabric, it's folded in half, selvage edge to selvage edge. So you want to leave it folded, but make sure you've pressed all of the wrinkles out of it. And take the folded edge up here. Actually, I'm going to go over the cutting mat first. Here is the 0 line on the cutting mat. This is where the big numbers are. And then over here is another 0 line. And then here's the 1-inch line going across here. So you're going to focus on this 1-inch line going this way and the 0 line here, okay? Take the folded edge up here and place it on that 1-inch line and make sure it's going straight across. Then your raw edge here, which is probably jagged, because usually when you buy fabric it's never straight, you want to pull it past the 0 line here. So just pull it past, which I've already done. Smooth it all out, make sure it's even. You're going to cut this edge over here straight. So take the edge of your ruler and place it on the 0 line up here as well as down here. So keep it all lined up. And then with a rotary cutter, and I highly recommend you use a 24-inch ruler, and go ahead and cut that edge straight. Now don't move your fabric, leave it exactly where it is. So now you're going to place this edge of your ruler on the 3.5-inch line, and we're going to cut out 7 strips 3.5 inches wide. So place that ruler on there, make sure it's lined up down here, and then do your cut. Now don't move your fabric. Now all of your next cuts will be on the 7.5 inch line, the 10.5 inch line, 14, 17.5, 21, and 24.5. Once you've got all of your 7 strips cut out, just set them aside, okay? So now let's move on to going over the jelly roll. Okay, so here's a jelly roll in case you don't know what they look like. They're 2.5 inch wide strips with a variety of colors and patterns in them, rolled into this, what looks like a jelly roll donut, doesn't it? It's got ribbon around it. So this is a 20 strip pack. You can also get them in 40 strip packs. So go ahead, take your jelly roll apart and begin setting your strips out in the order you would like them to appear in your quilt. Okay, so I recommend trying to place a dark, if you can, in between each light. Okay, so here's my last one. All right, so now remember, if you don't want to use a jelly roll, you can cut your own strips, and also you can even use scraps of fabric. So here's the order that I'm going to go in. This is my first and second strip. So go ahead and you're going to place the second one on top of the first one. Righty, like I have done. Like that. Front sides together. Stitch 1/4 inch along that entire edge. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind when you're stitching these long rows is sometimes your rows your stitching gets a little wavy. So you want to make sure it's a really good, solid 1/4 inch, same width all the way across. Otherwise, things are going to start getting a little wavy. All right, so then press this seam on top and then press the seam on the back side first. Unfold, press on top. Now I like to just press this seam towards the strip I just stitched on, which is my pink here. Now after you've got that one done, you're going to add on the green. So stitch it on 1/4 inch. Pay attention that your seams are nice and straight. Press on the back side, unfold, press on front, and press this seam towards the green. Then continue on adding this peach one and then the green one. Once you've got down to your last color, whatever it is, you're going to come back up here and add this, in my case is my yellow. You're going to add it onto this green, and then you're going to go through the whole process again. Keep repeating until you've gone through all of the ones that you need. Alrighty, so let me set this aside. So once you're done, you're going to have something that looks like this, okay? Now, remember how I said things can get a little wavy? Well, I'm going to show you an example in this, because even I get a little off sometimes. So I want to show you it happens. So how you can work around it. First of all, make sure you've given it a good pressing. It's all smoothed out. So look at this selvage edge here. We're going to trim all of this straight. Now, if your piece here has a little bit of waviness in it, you're going to need to kind of eyeball it and make some little adjustments so that it doesn't look too wobbly. Okay, so on your ruler, you want to focus on the lines going horizontal here, okay? And also focus on the seams here so that the majority of it is pretty straight. Your lines may not lay perfectly straight against those seams. So you just kind of want an adjustment to where it doesn't look too far off if you've got that waviness in it. Then after you've determined where you want to cut, then go ahead and cut this edge straight. Get rid of all that selvage edges, and then move your ruler on down and continue cutting till you have that edge straight. Okay, so I've got it done over here, so let me move this over. Now smooth it out. Now here's my cut edge. So you want to place, now for the baby size, I'm cutting them 5.5 inches wide. So on your ruler, look for the 5.5 inch line and place it on this raw edge here. Now remember, if you're making a larger quilt, then you need to determine how wide you want them and cut that width accordingly. So now I've got it all lined up. So now I'm going to trim. So we're going to do this twice here because I think my blade is a little tired. And then of course, move it down so you can finish cutting and line it up back on that 5.5 inch line. Make sure you've got it all straight, and then continue cut till you've got the last little piece done. All right, so here's your first row. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. Now you're going to cut your second row. Now remember how I said things can get a little wavy. So place that 5.5 inch line on here and look to see if things are really starting to twist in one direction. If it looks good, go ahead and cut. Or you might have to make some adjustments and twist your ruler a little bit and recut this other edge. I hope you all understand that, because it does happen. Things get wavy. So you want to continue cutting until you have 4 rows with your coin pieces in it. Okay, so let me set this piece aside and go on to the next one. So take your sashing and your coin rows, and on the very first row, you're going to put sashing. Let me turn this around, sorry. You're going to stitch sashing on each side. Now when you're cutting your sashing, cut it slightly longer than your row, your coin rows here. You want it a little bit longer, you want a little bit of overhang at each end. So bring it front sides together and go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch along here, all along that row. Remember, keep those lines really straight. You don't want to veer off. Then press this seam flat and then unfold, press it on top. And I prefer to press my seams towards the sashing. It makes this coin section lay a lot flatter. Now don't trim this off just yet. Add on your next piece of sashing. Remember, let a little bit of sashing hang over on each end. And then stitch it on 1/4 inch, press, unfold, press, pushing this seam towards the sashing. Now before you add on your next coin row, you want to trim this straight. So you're going to take your ruler's edge and place it on here. Okay, so line this up and then also check to see how it's lining up along here. If things look a little crooked, then of course you need to make adjustments and see if something didn't get stitched on properly. Then once you've got it all lined up, go ahead and trim the ends of the sashing off so that it looks like this. Okay, there we go. See how this is nice and straight now. Now take your next coin row, which is this one here, and you're going to line up this edge with this edge and bring front sides together. And once you've got everything lined up, and also along the side here, you're going to stitch it on 1/4 inch. Then press on the back side, unfold, and press on top, pushing the seam towards the sashing. So now you can see this is straight across here. You've done it all correctly. That's what it's going to look like. So now take your next row of sashing. Now this sashing, remember, is going to be too long. You want it that way. So have some extending out at each end. Bring front sides together. Stitch it on. Do your pressing. Unfold, press towards the sashing. Now you're going to take your ruler and trim this straight. Now line your ruler up all along the edge here to make sure you're not going south or north or east or west, okay? And then trim this off. Do it at both ends. You're going to continue that process, putting all of it together, okay? And then always end it with a row of sashing. So after you've put all your sashing on in between the rows, you need to put a strip of sashing at each end of the quilt. So you're going to line it up across that edge and stitch 1/4 inch along here. And then you're going to press on the back side and then unfold and press on top. Now make sure when you're stitching it on you have a little bit of overhang at each end so that we can square it off really nice. So after you've stitched it on and done your pressing, you want to line your ruler up along this edge here, okay? And then you're going to trim the edges straight. So go ahead and let me line this up a little bit better and go ahead and trim this off. Now you might want to check this edge and see if there's anything that's out of alignment there. So I'm going to turn it just a little bit so that I can cut that edge. Okay, so line it up on this edge here, going in the other direction. Try to get it nice and straight, all lined up along there. And then go ahead and trim anything that might be sticking out on this end. Now you want to do it at all 4 corners so that they look like this. Okay? And then you have your quilt top all done, and then it's ready to be layered. Now, if you don't know how to layer a quilt, click on the link in the upper right hand corner, and layering means putting your quilt top with the batting and the fabric on the back, and it tells you how to get that all lined up and measured correctly. And then if you need instructions on machine quilting, that's the step that holds all the layers together. Click on the link in the upper right hand corner, and that will give you some suggestions for machine quilting. And then of course the last step is putting on the binding on the raw edges. And if you do need instructions for that, there's a link in the upper right hand corner to take you to that video to teach you basic instructions on putting on binding. Now, if you want to keep informed on all of our future videos here on the Sewing Room channel, you need to click on subscribe. And there's a subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. It's red. It does say subscribe. You can click on that one. Then in the upper left hand corner of your screen is a round picture of my face. That's also a subscribe button. Once you do that, YouTube will prompt you for your email address. Real important you enter that. Once you enter that, and the next time I have a new video, YouTube sends you a very brief email with a big button in the center. You click on it and it takes you directly to my latest video. Now I'm Cheryl, and I'm really glad you came to my sewing room. Now I'm going to see you next time, and happy sewing.